Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Recruit Military Live. My name is Gabby Petticrew, and I am your host for today, where we will be discussing communicating employment or job seeking status to your network in search of that meaningful post-military career. Please feel free at any time to chime in with any comments or questions you may have, because today is going to be a great one. Over the past couple of months, we've laid a strong emphasis on how to locate and continue to build that strong network, both in and out of the military. And once you have it, how do you now most effectively and efficiently utilize that network to help you lock down that dream career? Well, our guest today just so happens to be an expert in that field. He currently serves as the managing partner at Randle Partners, where he is an experienced talent executive, coach, and leader, known for selecting, building, and reorganizing teams to reach their full business potential. He has over 20 years of Fortune 100 and Fortune 1000 global human resources and talent acquisition experience, creating and leading high-performance teams. He's also the co-author of the best-selling book, The Talent War: How Special Operations and Great Organizations Win on Talent, as well as being a phenomenal public speaker. Following a successful career as a U.S. Army officer, he transitions to the human resources and talent acquisition functions, serving the last 10 years as a global HR executive and leader. The teams he has built and led have hired over 80,000 professionals in over 60 countries. Please give me a warm welcome and join me in welcoming George Randle to the show. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Gabby. It's so hard.
That was a mouthful.
To hear that introduction, I guess it goes with the gray. So
no, it's a good look. But my word, that is quite an experienced rap sheet, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate. We've had George on the show multiple times, and it's a great show every time because of the amount of valuable guidance that you've imparted every single time. So thank you again for joining us.
Well, thank you. I love helping veterans. I mean, it's 25. That's all I'm going to go to is 25.
Mom's the word. But no, thank you so much. And as I mentioned, over the past couple of months, we've put a strong emphasis on that, building that network, if you're still in the service, building the network, doing it outside as a veteran, as a military spouse, whatever that title is that you have, and in the many avenues that you can do that, whether that's online, through socials, through LinkedIn, whether that's in person, at job fairs, events, networking events. And now that we've established the ways to go about in creating and establishing and maintaining that strong network, we brought you on here to really pass some wisdom on, now that you have that network, how do you most effectively utilize that network to show that, yes, you are open for employment and finding that right career field for you with that right employer and the right way to go about doing that?
Yeah, well, LinkedIn is really what's leveled the playing field for the entire industry. It doesn't matter whether you're a basic level recruiter, it doesn't matter whether you're a candidate, it doesn't matter whether you're an executive search managing partner like myself. It's leveled the playing field. Mm-hmm. So I always tell people, when you start with LinkedIn, please make sure that your profile shows that you're open to work and that you've accurately and to the best of your ability made a great profile. One that has all of your attributes, all of your skills, certainly your achievements. So that way, when you start networking with people, the first thing they're going to do is go look at your profile. And so you need to make sure that it's up to date. I tell people first of all, it hasn't changed in all of my time in talent acquisition, which is the number one way to get a job is through employee referral. Now, a lot of people think mistakenly that's who you know. And it's not quite that. I won't go into the long story, but when people apply into an applicant tracking system, you apply to a job on LinkedIn or through Indeed or any job posting, you're going to come into a system and they come by timestamp. And the only thing that supersedes that timestamp is a manager or leader at that company going to the recruiter and handing them your resume and saying, Hey, you know what? Call them. And in most cases, most companies, those people are incentivized and given some kind of monetary reward. So your ability to network starts with the LinkedIn profile. And then second of all, Where I always started was when, now mind you, this dates me. LinkedIn wasn't around when I got out, which is why I got into helping veterans make it easier. But that said, even when I've gone and started to change careers, I look first at all of those people that I worked with or I worked for in the military, or I went to the same school with, or I have something in common. And then here's the critical part where military people get it wrong, is they just reach straight out and say, hey, will you give my resume to a recruiter? Really, what you need to do is go look at that company, find a position that matches your skill set and your attributes and your interests, and then reach out to that person and give your contact, the information so that they can get your resume into the right place. Most people just use network and say, hey, I want to reconnect. I found this job at your company. Can you give them my resume? If I'm in a company of, let's say the last one where I was the head of talent acquisition, there's 3,000 people. At any given time, there's 400 open positions, there's 65 recruiters, and you're one manager. That means they have to take the time to look through the system to figure out, okay, where do I give this resume? So when you do network, one of the most effective ways is to look at the company and do the work for your contact to get you to the right recruiter. Then you're going to get a call much, much faster and more often.
Exactly. And that's a great point that you make, because I feel like there's so many different areas that we can branch off and speak on. One, of course, yes, locking down what position it is that you see yourself in based off of the skill sets that you're bringing to the table, and then taking that to the organization that you're interested in, doing that research. One issue that I know a lot of veterans face, because, they've been stuck in the same MOS, career field for 4, 10, 15, 20 years, is that they feel that they need to stick to that career field and stay in it. And so when other opportunities that just as well match their skill sets come by, they feel like, oh, well, I've been in logistics, I'm not good at A, B, and C, I'm going to stick to this career field. What would you say to those individuals who are hesitant to take the skill sets that they have and transfer it to a different industry? Because that could stop you from getting your dream career just because you're not, you've never been precisely in that seat.
Oh, and I'm going to add on something, because I know we talked previously, and it goes to location as well.
Yes.
Never, ever self-limit yourself as to what you can or you can't do. And one of the things that when I've coached veterans over 25 years, the things that made you successful in the military will make you successful in corporate America. Guaranteed. It's the world's greatest leadership incubator. Don't limit yourself to what you think that the company needs in that position, or what they would accept in another position. You're actually projecting knowledge and making assumptions that you don't know. So if something is interesting to you and you feel that you have the experience and the knowledge and the ability to do the job, then apply for that job. Absolutely do that. One of the other things that I tell people is, first of all, let me pop the bubble. You're not getting your ideal job out of the military. You're just not. I mean, when I got into recruiting, nobody raises their hand and says, hey, I want to be a recruiter for the rest of my life. Nobody wants to do that. I wanted to run the show. And I eventually did multiple times over. Now I have my own practice. Plus, I'm with an amazing executive search firm. But what I tell people is get into the company, because it's performance and talent that matters. And once you're into a great company and you can demonstrate, it's like when you get into the military, you see one MOS, but then you see all the cool things that everybody else does. Get into the organization in a spot that you like, and then let your performance and your drive and your interest dictate where you go within that company.
And I know, speaking as a family person myself, I was always gung-ho about, specifically returning to Arizona. Thankfully, I do have a remote job. So I'm one of those, those lucky few that are able to work for wherever and anywhere. But those that do have that think that they have that strong limitation regarding location. You and I were talking previously about the laundry list of things that, anyone in that position may not consider when it comes to having an open mindset about relocating to an area that they didn't have in mind. Can you go over some of those? Because you were, blowing my mind with things that I never even considered.
It was driving, it's the biggest pet peeve when I coach and help, and I do it pro bono, a lot of veterans, and say, well, I've been with my spouse and my family, and we want to set roots in, I had one literally the other day, Tampa, Florida. And I'm like, you just told every recruiter, anybody that finds your resume, you just was a horse with blinders on. That's what you've done, is you've limited the set of things that you might be, and even limited it down even further to that location. So what I tell people is, listen, when you get out, the number one thing is you're in charge of your PTO. You're in charge of your vacations. I am a diehard Kansas City Chiefs fan, which probably caused a bunch of people to jump off. But I had waited 40 some years for a Super Bowl. So you guys can do that. But my last duty station was Fort Hood, Texas, and I found Austin where we could fly out. Now, I happen to love it, but I have since moved to Midtown Manhattan to work because the ideal opportunity was there. What I tell veterans is chase opportunity early in your career, because as you gain credibility, as you gain a reputation as a top performer in an organization, you now have more control over where you go. And even though that I'm in Austin, if I want to go to a Kansas City Chiefs game because my brother has season tickets, I'm like, okay, I'm going. Hey, it's Friday, 3 o'clock. I grab a flight. I go up, stay with my brother. We'll watch a Chiefs game on Sunday, and I'll fly back Monday morning on an early flight. I go do those things. I don't miss weddings. I don't miss funerals. I don't miss any of those things because of deployments or taskings, or it's not my time for leave. I'm now in control. So location matters less and less. What you should be doing is chasing opportunity, because when you chase opportunity and your talent's recognized and you're rewarded for performance, then you can go anywhere you want to go. And as a matter of fact, if you really want to reach the highest ranks of some of the biggest companies, the chances are you're going to end up having to do an expat or an international assignment at some point in your career if you want to be in the C-suite. And it's great. I loved it. I got to live in New York City for 2 years and work for a hedge fund. I mean, who would have thought a Texas boy? Now, they didn't like my cowboy boots, but that's a whole different story. So, but it's great experience, and it helped propel me to where I am today.
That's fantastic. And I thank you for telling that story, because I know even myself, at one point I was very much that person, only wanted to go back to one place. But say that, you've established, you're leaving your mind open to be relocated, to take an opportunity on wherever it may appear. How would that person go about setting themselves apart from anyone else that may apply? Say they reached out to a connection in regards to a specific position at a specific company. Once they have that contact, how is it, tailoring resumes? Well, obviously it's, I'm sure, a bunch of different things, but tailoring resumes specific to that position, reaching out to that connection and saying what, how are you presenting yourself to, differentiate you from everyone else in that resume pile?
Well, let me kind of digress just a little bit. It is the number one mistake that companies make and candidates make. When companies go to search for candidates and candidates go to search for jobs, they rarely, if ever, define what success is. And with candidates, they don't know what makes themselves successful and how to sell it. So before you start networking, make sure you understand what does make you different. And what are the few taglines that you can use in a short message in LinkedIn that says, hey, we both serve together here. I love what your company's doing. I was able to do A, B, and C, and I won this award, and this award. Throw something quick and impactful.
Yeah.
If you can, something that really differentiates yourself. Don't just say I can do the job, because frankly, anybody can do most jobs if given the proper training. But if this one really appeals to you, you have to know what makes you different. And here's how I explained it to people. Now, I was enlisted in a company commander. There was a company commander before me, and there was one after me. And on our evaluations, we had the exact same job description. Exact same. And it goes for all the services. There's somebody before you, somebody after you. Well, what is it that made you great in that role? And can you articulate it? And don't just articulate it in your head. If you've ever been in a class where the professor stomped their foot, this is the time I'm doing it. Write it down.
Yes.
Write down what makes you different. There are two things. There's objective assets, which are, I got this degree, I won this award, I achieved this. Those are things that are points of fact. Then there's the subjective assets, the attributes, the drive, the resiliency, the curiosity, the EQ. You can go on endlessly on adjectives about what makes you different. But do you really know why you are a great platoon sergeant, a squad leader, company commander, lieutenant? Can you say in a very short, impactful way, this is what made me different?
And on that, I know it can be a big issue for a lot of veterans, whether they're, still in getting ready and preparing to get out, building that resume, building that elevator speech. It can be very hard to talk about yourself and your accomplishments and the things that you do very well, because you've been a part of a team and you've been, taught for so long to blend in. No one is bigger than the entire team. Now is the time to do that. So if you do have those problems, one thing that I definitely recommend that I learned over the years is, if you're not so great about, internalizing that and reflecting what those may be, pull up all of those, what we call, in the Marine Corps, fit reps, but those not exams, but those mentorships, that paperwork that shows from time to time your leader taking you aside, giving you an evaluation, over a 6-month year period, and seeing all the great things, all the characteristics that they talk about. Boom, they're literally saying ABC, this is what this person does well. And, the longer you stay in, the more of those that you'll have. And the most recent, obviously, being the better. But that's one way, a cheat code for me, who had imposter syndrome, still does to this day, to look back at those reflections of those evaluations, from E9s, from O5s, and being like, oh, this person, like, I am doing good, like I do bring this, and this to the table. So that for me was a really good cheat code. Be like, okay, I can literally take this and transform it onto a resume and reflects what it is.
Easiest way to do it. You just gave the perfect example, and one that I give a bunch of times. The thing that, one of the many tips that I give to veterans who are transitioning is if you don't take time to write down that list, we take things for granted. Our baked in humility from the service, we don't want to talk about ourselves. But the person you're interviewing with, they want to know what you did. And the only word that gives you ownership in that is the word I. Now, there's a very clear line between candor and bragging. And if you don't know where it is, you're going to struggle all the time. But it's easy for you to say, I came up with this plan. I evaluated the circumstances, the environment. I had these resources. I put this plan into action. I delegated. I did this. And then at the end, give credit to other people. It's very easy to still keep your answers with a tone of humility, but making sure that you've clearly articulated what portion you played in the success of, that result. You absolutely have to get comfortable doing it. And you didn't ask me, but I wanted to throw this out there because I forgot about this. The hardest question, and the one question that every veteran has to master before they start interviewing practice, is the hardest question in the world. And you'd think it was the easiest one. And that is, so if somebody comes at you in one form or another and says, describe for me your leadership style, you would think the military folks would knock that one out of the park. There's an old saying, the longer you talk, the more guilty you know they are. And my fiance asked me a question. It better be a very direct answer. The longer I talk, the more chance I am of sleeping outdoors, because she knows I'm guilty. I have asked colonels, I've asked generals to describe their leadership style, and they're still talking 10 minutes later because they don't know what differentiates them. So if you're going to talk about your accomplishments and take ownership of things, make sure first and foremost, you know how you lead and you can articulate what makes you different in that regard.
1000%. And, going into the networking field and then going into that job search where you're speaking with people on and off, it can really be an experience that helps you learn more about you, that in ways that you haven't really thought of. You're like, and especially in a positive aspect, because it's so easy to get caught up in the negative when the transition process, whether you're going through it or already are out and still looking for that dream career, it can be a doozy. It can be, a whirlwind of emotions and issues left and right, trying to find that perfect fit. So doing this, speaking with people and internalizing, writing down all the things that it is you do bring to the table, what it is you want from an employer, from a position, areas that you want to grow. That can all be, I think, a great process to go through to really learn about yourself.
It is. And I also tell people, why do we go to the pistol range? Why do we go to the rifle range? Why do we do gunnery? Because professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. Exactly. As you start to network and you put down all of these achievements, you've gotten the resume done, you know what differentiates you. Take the top 30 questions that might be thrown at you, put them on flashcards, and practice until you can't get those answers wrong, till they're very, very fluid. Because the best interview and the best networking are all simple conversations. I actually got a job offer in the Reagan National Airport.
Oh, wow.
I was going to another job interview. I saw guys and I could tell that their suits were $3,000 to $5,000. Now, this was a long time ago, so that's a lot of money for a suit. Yes. There were Rolexes, Panerais, Omegas. And I walked up and I said, listen, guys, I'm on the job search. I'll buy you all a round of beer if you give me your best career advice. I came out of that. There were 5 guys at the table. I had 3 interviews with 3 different companies at the end of the day and 1 offer. Just by networking in that regard, asking for people's advice. So going back to the one thing I missed on the networking is when you do make that connection, ask for their best advice. How did they do it? Gather as many tips as you possibly can along the way. It'll just make you better, because when that right opportunity hits, you've practiced, you know what differentiates you, and you can articulate that in a succinct, great way. And while I'm on it, forget the STAR method. If anybody's teaching STAR method, please forget about it. Nobody's answered a general, colonel, or lieutenant colonel's question or a sergeant major's question with the STAR method. They've always done bottom line up front, give the result up front, and then tell what you did. I had to get that plug in there because if
you're starting from zero from scratch, maybe it's a good basis, but you definitely don't limit yourself to that method. Because as you mentioned, it's one thing, and I 1000% agree, is that there's no one else like you, So bringing you to the table is one thing that's definitely going to set you apart. I can say that any interview that I've gone into for a job, I've been nervous. I have felt all of, the shakes of excitement and nerve, but I'm still me. And at the end of the day, I remind myself, I'm a human and this person's a human. Just have a conversation with them. Obviously be respectful, be professional, but be yourself and show your personality. That's one thing is I always, it's just in my nature, but whether I'm hosting for a live, whether I'm, having an interview with someone, I'm being myself and I'm doing my best to make them laugh, to make them feel comfortable as much as I want to feel comfortable. So always present yourself as your true self in every connection, in every conversation, in every interview, because that spark in you, that's what they want at the end of the day. Yes, all your the skill sets that you bring to the table, but the person that you are is the person that they're going to be working with for the next however many years.
Yeah.
So many other people have that laundry list of skill sets to bring to the table, but are they going to want to work with that person for however long that period may be? Be yourself.
You've nailed it. Authenticity is rarely talked about. Just look at your military careers and remember the people that you had to work with and work for that were inauthentic.
Yes.
And how much you didn't like it. So bring your whole self, bring your authentic self to an interview, because if you don't want them to say yes to somebody that you aren't. You're going to end up in a very difficult situation. And if they choose you for exactly who you are, it's exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
So you make a brilliant, brilliant point. Authenticity in an interview means everything. And I would tell you, I don't even know how many interviews I've done. I mean, we are way into the 6 figures.
Yeah.
And I know within 2 seconds if somebody's being inauthentic. And then the question becomes is everything that follows, is that really them? Did they really do that? So if I get somebody that's warm and authentic, here's kind of an interesting thing. Let me share to you this way. I gave it the point that, I've never ever heard a hiring manager say to me, great experience, great degree, great everything, what a jerk, I'm going to hire him. Never heard it. Never, ever heard it. But what I have heard more times than I can count is, degree isn't quite on point. the years of experience maybe a little bit light, and I think they're missing the skill. But you know what? The energy, the authenticity, this person's got something, and I want it
Mhm.
on my team. And I hear that all the time because they want somebody with drive, initiative, and somebody that's going to be resilient. And if you bring those authentic traits out, you're going to do much better. And if they don't select you, you're moving on to the next opportunity.
Exactly. This wasn't meant to be. And I can tell you, within the military community, work ethic and resiliency are things that we are not lacking. So you bring so much more to the table than you know. And I can speak to that firsthand because every job application I've seen, probably 99.9% of the time, if not 100, there's always, that tick on there that says preferred bachelor's degree in ABC. Now, while I've started and stopped many times, I've still yet to achieve, that degree. Being a single mom of 2 kids, working full time, out here by myself, it's hard. It's on my to-do list. It's on my list of accomplishments, but I haven't gotten it yet. And that's always been a level of insecurity for me in the past when I have gone for an interview or threw my hat in the ring for a position. But when it comes to landing that interview, I truly know that I am such a people person, that I bring so much empathy and passion and work ethic to the table, that I know once I get in front of that interviewer and I'm my authentic self and I'm able to relay that and relay all that passion and everything I do bring to the table, I've gotten that position. And then, so that's why whatever your resume may have or not have on it, don't be deterred by that or feel, insecure by that, because what you bring to the table is so much more than you realize.
So much more. And I could give you countless examples. Actually, ended up having a candidate placed who did not finish his degree in an asset management company. And I'm not even going to tell you what that offer was, but all in with bonuses, it would have been 7 figures.
Woo!
He didn't have a degree, but he had built that experience over time. And it all started with exactly what you said, Gabby, which is, listen, I brought my authentic self to the table. He knew how to articulate what made him different, what made him successful. And he brought it full bore. And people were like, okay, got to have this guy. That's how it works. And interviewing interviewing is a skill, but it begins with knowing yourself and being yourself.
And that interviewing skill can be practiced. Just, if you unfortunately don't have that, support of others around you, interview with yourself, record yourself answering the questions, that, you can chat GPT is a great thing. Give me 5 interviews in regards to this position. You can do that on your own. But if you do have that support system around you, practice with friends and family, practice with, if your kids are old enough, mine are 4.5 and 6, so maybe not them, but practice with the people around you, because it can be, even now, I get nervous at, the beginning of streams, like that nerves, regardless how long you've been in an industry doing a specific job, those nerves can still get to you. So get those out, get those answers rolling off the tongue and practice. So when it comes time for that interview, you still may be nervous, but more secure, more confident.
Yeah. I would tell you that practicing, my fiance is a C-suite executive. And when I've gone for senior level positions, I'm still practicing. Like I said, professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. And you have to practice for every company, for every interview. You have to do the research. And the more you practice, the more comfortable, the more most people think if you over practice, you're going to become robotic.
Yeah.
It's not true. You actually become more comfortable because you're not worried about the curveballs that get thrown at you. So,
exactly.
Is one of the things. I still prep C-suite executives before they interview. Because they just don't take the time to practice. And now I'm like, we need to work.
Sometimes they get too comfortable and you're like, no, we gotta dust off, the gears a bit. And with that, we had a great question from Tangela on LinkedIn. How do you launch into the executive level career path? Is it based on your degrees or experience?
It's a lot more than both.
Yeah.
So the answer is, number one, it depends most upon your performance. Number two, growing a legacy of leadership, impacting the company with bottom line results. Do the degrees help? Yes, sometimes they do. But if you're already in a company and you're gaining broad-based experience, but you're delivering exceptional results, that's what's driving you. and continuing to grow your leadership skills, because growing leadership skills in the corporate world is leadership, yes. The environments change. In the military, we would adapt our tactics to the environment that we're in. The same thing happens in the corporate world. So it is a great question. Can degrees help? Yes. Does experience? Absolutely. You're not hitting the executive level if you haven't mastered the function or come close to it. But it all starts with delivering exceptional results at everything you do, whether you like that role or not. And by the way, great phrase was given to me by a coach and mentor of mine, Tracy Keogh, who was a CHRO of HP when it was 400,000 people. And she says, you really need to think of a career not as a climbing ladder or a ladder to be, to just go vertical. It's actually a climbing wall. Sometimes you're going to go sideways and reach. Sometimes you're going to go horizontally. Sometimes you may switch to a different department if your goal is to hit the executive ranks. It is not, with the exception of sales, is usually just pretty vertical. But you need to understand to deliver results to make the executive, because becoming an executive, as much as people think it's who you know, you will flame out faster than you could imagine if you're not delivering great results.
Exactly. No, I love that analogy, because, we see it even in like infographics in pictures where the job field and the job search journey is, picturized as a ladder. So I love that climbing wall as an analogy. I know we're nearing our end here, and there was one question for sure that I really wanted to ask, being in the employer, the hiring person's seat, what have been the top 3 things that you've seen in the candidate that have set them apart when it comes to any, and like just blanket term, any industry? What is it that you've seen that has been like that person stuck in your mind afterwards? And
really 2 of them we already discussed was energy and authenticity. You have to bring it. But really, the number one differentiator is when somebody can articulate in a succinct and impactful way how they deliver exceptional results. Don't tell me. Now, I'll give you the example. At ACAP centers and all these transition centers, they build these resumes, and their resumes full of what you were responsible for, not what you accomplished within the scope of that job. The people that stand in front of me and say, hey, I was able to take this department that was hitting 50% of their target in 6 months to hit on 125%, to quantify your accomplishments, to explain your part in it, how you drove new ideas, how you drove collaboration, how you made sure that your team delivered or that you delivered. If you can articulate that well, you're going to stand out. It's the people that, for lack of a better term, diarrhea of the mouth that drove on and on and on and on. And I've got to search for, okay, did you even
what did they just say?
Yeah, what'd you say? It's like my kids are prattling on for a long time. They're off the payroll now, but when they did, they talked for a long time. But you have to bring the energy, be authentic, and absolutely know what you're going to be able to deliver and what you've delivered in the past, and how that is a great example for what you'll bring to that company for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, George, and for all of the wisdom that you passed today. We've got some great engagement, great questions. Thank you again. We love having you on just because of these nuggets of wisdom that you drop. Any last parting words that you may have?
I think, the job market right now is a little bit uncertain, unstable, but really what veterans have that you should really count on, there's 2 things that I would leave you with. Number one, the work ethic compared to Gen Z and the market that's out there right now, you've got them beat hands down. And so you need to really be talking about resiliency, drive, work ethic, and it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're going to deliver results. The second thing is, don't get emotionally attached to any application that you submit. Please don't, because it will drain you in the process. There are so many reasons as a recruiting manager where that position just disappeared and I hired nobody. There were times where, we moved somebody internally or it got put on hold. So when you're attaching emotion and energy to something you applied for and going, oh my God, I'm perfect for that role. you're setting yourself up for the ups and downs that you don't need. It just has to be a consistent drive that it's not a matter of if it's going to happen for veterans. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. And you keep driving and getting better and better, and you will land a great job. And then it's all on your shoulders to perform.
Even as we're crossing the finish line of this live, that's something that I've never heard of before. Like, and I'm an emotional person, so that's fantastic wisdom when it comes to anyone else like me who gets very excited, gets their hopes up about that one position with that perfect job description. And doing that process like 10 times, submitting all these applications, you're exactly right, can burn you out so quickly. So thank you for that.
It does. It's great. And I've changed jobs a number of times because I was looking for new ways to grow my career. Mm-hmm. So the interviewing skill, that's probably the last thing I'd leave you with. You're always going to need the interviewing and networking skills, even when you do land a great job. Keep them fresh, keep them current, because you never know when the next great opportunity for you to advance your professional life is going to come. And through whom. So strengthen the network that you build and continue to know what makes you great as you gain experience, as you gain skills and more complex roles.
That's perfectly said. George, thank you again so much for joining us today. I always learn. I take my own notes when we're on, and I'm sure, our audience does just as well. So thank you again for joining us today. Thanks. I'm sure we'll have you on many times more, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. I'm very humbled by the invitation. Thanks, and good luck to everybody that's listening.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that joined us today for our episode of Recruit Military Live, and we will see you next time.